Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm back to break down this 5-game MLB slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Before we get into it, if you do enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, I would greatly appreciate that. We're about 10 subscribers away from 500, so thank you to everyone that has supported so far. And thank you to everyone that's watching this video today. So as always, we're going to go ahead and break down the pitchers that we want to play first, and then we'll break down some bats after that. So as we go, break down on both sites. So as always, I like to go ahead and sort my sheet by K rate. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts, and the top guy on the slate today in K rate is going to be that Mr. Corbin Burns taking on the Minnesota Twins. He has a 3.36 SIERA, 33.3% K rate, 15.7 swinging strike rate. Against righties, he strikes out them out 38.2% of the time, and against lefties, it's 28.3% of the time. He has a little bit of a slugging issue against lefties, but overall, very, very solid across the board. And he's definitely going to be the top option on the slate today. The only issue is he does have to take on the Minnesota Twins, which has a pretty solid lineup up and down. Looking at their lineup, you got Luis Arias at the top, Byron Buxton, Jorge Polanco, Miguel Sano, Max Kepler, Ryan Jeffers, Anderson Simmons, and Williams Astudillo. I will say there are quite a few strikeouts to be had in this lineup, in particular bats. You know, Byron Buxton's the guy that strikes out quite a bit. Miguel Sano, there's quite a few strikeouts in his bat. You got Ryan Jeffers. I mean, Anderson Simmons, Max Kepler, decent strikeout rate as well. Luis Arias doesn't ever strike out at the top, unfortunately, so it's a little bit of a blend. But with Corbin Burns stuff, you know, definitely top option. He's 9.2 on FanDuel today, and on DraftKings, he's coming in right now with a price of only 8.2 compared to the rest of the slate. That's not bad at all. So definitely going to have some interest in him. Second on the slate is Walker Buehler, and you could argue that he's the top pitcher on the slate, but the issue is he is in Coors Field, has a 29.1% K rate, a 3.29 ERA, best ERA on the slate by far. Not that that's a very important stat when it comes to DFS, but just overall it tells you good stuff. 12.1 swing strike rate, ground ball, fly ball rate's not the best. 5.4 walk rate. Against righties, he strikes them out 29% of the time. Against lefties, he strikes them out 29% of the time as well. Pretty even across the board. He actually struggles more against righties in the slugging category. Against lefties, he has been very solid. And like I said, the only issue really is that he's in Coors Field, but he gets to take on a Colorado team that doesn't really scare me overall outside of the fact that they're in Coors and Walker Buehler stuff, as mentioned. I do think he has plenty of strikeouts to go around. He is priced at 8K on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's priced up at 9.3. So on FanDuel, you get a little bit more of a reasonable price on him. And I mean, like I said, the only issue is he's in Coors, so it's tough to be playing that. If you can swing it, sure. Like, he's not the worst play in the world, but also you could probably go to a guy like a Corbin Burns, who we already discussed, who is a 130 favorite in Milwaukee, and just overall might be a better option based upon his pitching environment. Third on the slate is Lance Lynn, a 27.5% K rate. Lance Lynn, we know, is very splits heavy. He has a 32.4% K rate against righties. Against lefties, it dips down to a 22.8% K rate. And he's still pretty good across the board as far as ground ball, fly ball, will, but hard hit rate against lefties. It's just the strikeout rate dips way down. Against righties, he actually gives up more slugging. But as far as strikeout upside, we do prefer to target him in right-handed heavy matchups and take it on this Angels squad today. We can see that they do feature quite a few righties. They have Dexter Fowler, Jared Walsh, and Shohei Ohtani expected for lefties. That's only 3 lefties in the lineup. That's going to really, you know, treat Lance Lynn well as far as his strikeout stuff is concerned. And I do think that for that reason, you could argue he's the top option on the slate in this one. And he is priced so on FanDuel. On FanDuel, he's at 9.8. Top price guy on the slate as far as DraftKings is concerned. He's second most priced guy at 9.2. And I think for good reason. Like I said, I think this is a great matchup for him. A lot of righties to go around. His splits, you know, he really performs great against righties. As far as strikeout rate's concerned, unfortunately, some of them don't really have the highest rate, like Jose Iglesias, Anthony Rendon, Mike Trout. I mean, decent strikeout rates, David Fletcher. But there's a guy in there like a Justin Upton that I'm not worried about at all. And a Kurt Suzuki who also has a pretty decent strikeout rate. So I do think that Lance Lynn's a great option on the slate for sure. Third guy on the list as far as K rate, but definitely a great option. And then that's when things start to get a little bit dicey. I do think that Joe Musgrove taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks would be a great option, as well as Jose Barrios. Caleb Smith taking on the San Diego Padres, you could play. He has a 25.9% K rate overall, but the ground ball and the fly ball stuff is really bad. And he has an issue with giving up slugging against right-handed hitting. Really bad. He has a walk rate issue as well. He's good against lefties, and the San Diego Padres really have a great lineup to perform against left-handed pitching. So that's a little scary for me to go to. I think I'm rather target the bats there. You can target him in tournaments, but I do think that I would rather go down here. We have a few interesting options. We have, you know, Alex Cobb taking on the Chicago White Sox, Logan Webb taking on the Seattle Mariners. Jose Barrios and Joe Musgrove. As far as, my priority, there, honestly, I do think that you can kind of play all of these guys if you're paying up for bats, which in Coors Field, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to be paying for some bats in the Los Angeles Dodgers, even though they don't have the best matchup taking on John Gray. John Gray traditionally is pretty good at Coors Field, so if you want my opinion, I mean, I am a tournament player, so I do tend to be a little contrarian, but I would say probably fade the Dodgers. I think John Gray is probably not really in play. I mean, he could be. 21.2% K rate, 22.4% K rate against righties, and then a 20% K rate against lefties, but he's really bad in the slugging and stuff, and I kind of think he'll just kind of struggle his way through the innings but not get blown up sort of deal. So I'm not sure I'm really trying to play him, especially on DraftKings where you get, points deducted for hits and walks and such. But Joe Musgrove against Arizona. Arizona's lineup doesn't scare me at all. He has a 24% K rate overall, 26.2% K rate against righties, and a 21% K rate against lefties. Pretty solid stuff across the board, and they rate now have only a 3.44 implied run total. He's expected to get quite a few support from his bats, so he should get the win as well. And I have some interest in him. And then lastly, the guy that I cannot forget to mention, well, we can play Logan Webb as a cheapie. It's kind of an option, believe it or not. He only has a 19.8% K rate. Swing strike rate is really bad, but his ground ball and his fly ball stuff's good, really, really good. His hard hit rate stuff's really good. Against righties, the slugging and the WOBA isn't the greatest, but the ground ball and the fly ball stuff's great. And then against lefties, it's really good. So taking on the Seattle team, that just doesn't really scare me offensively and has a bunch of strikeouts in their lineup. I do think that Logan Webb could actually be a little like a diamond in the rough option. And I like him a lot more than you would typically think. Like Logan Webb and Lance Lynn are the two guys like at the low and at the top based upon their matchup and their stuff and everything. They make sense. And over on DraftKings, if you're looking at their price tags, Logan Webb comes in at 7.4. And like I said, Lance Lynn's priced up to 9.2. And I just think they make sense based upon their matchup and both of their abilities to strike out, particular hitters and all of the above. So, ironically, Logan Webb, not a typical elite guy. And then lastly, Jose Barrios, taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. I've mentioned multiple times their strikeout rate's a lot higher than people think. He has a 23.6% K rate, 23.6% K rate against righties, and then a 23.6% K rate against lefties, literally even across the board. And as far as his slugging and all that stuff goes, he is a little worse against lefties as far as hard hit rate, but overall, just solid. And the Milwaukee Brewers do have a lot of strikeouts, so I do think that he is a viable option as well. At 8.8, Jose Barrios and Corbin Burns both going to be great options in that first game. Depending upon the salary you have, like Lance Lynn and Jose Barrios are close, and I already mentioned I definitely do like Lance Lynn quite a bit, but Jose Barrios, I mean, it's a tough decision, but I do think that the great thing about this slate is that you can kind of toss in guys in all of these ranges based upon your bats that you really want and feel good about it, like I already mentioned the other guys. So with that being said, let's go ahead and transition over to bats. And as always, I like to sort my sheet by Sierra. It's a good way of figuring out, how good these pitchers have been overall. And the worst pitcher on the slate is going to be Chris Flexen taking on the San Francisco Giants. Not good stuff at all. We're only dealing with a 13 innings pitch sample size in this one, so just fair warning there. But so far, just been dreadful. I mean, slugging against righties, he's a 5.14 slugging. Against lefties, he has been very good. But the ground ball, the fly ball, the walk rate, the K rate, it's all terrible. He's just giving up a lot of hard contact. So the San Francisco Giants, I do think, are a very viable stack tonight. In Seattle, they only have a 4.38 implied run total. But I'm really excited to play some of these lefties that didn't quite crack the lineup with the lefties taking the bump the first two games. And we got Tommy La Stella, Mike Yastrzemski, Alex Dickerson, Brandon Belt. I definitely like those four guys specifically. Like, I think they're a great stack. They got the platoon advantage, the lefty taking on the righty, and they all have a bunch of pop. Like, Alex Dickerson has a ton of pop, Brandon Belt has pop, Mike Yastrzemski has a ton of pop, Tommy La Stella has a ton of pop. I feel really good about those four guys in this one, so I definitely want to start out by mentioning that stack. We have Alex Cobb taking on the Chicago White Sox. Really bad stuff across the board outside of the ground ball and the fly ball rate. Doesn't strike anyone out. Gives up a ton of hard contact, but the ground ball and the fly ball stuff's good. So just buyer beware there. That's kind of what you're dealing with when it comes to Alex Cobb. I don't think he's going to have a good game, but it's a matter of whether these guys can really get the ball airborne and get the ball in the gap for those doubles and home runs and big upside hits that you need in tournaments. Yoan Moncada at 3.4 I do think is a great play in the 4 spot. We weren't able to play him opening day or the last game out, last night, because he was taking on a lefty. He's much better against right-handed pitching, so I do like Yoan Moncada quite a bit in the 4 spot. We got Yasmani Grandal at 5K, or at 3K on FanDuel in the 5 spot. I like him. Jose Abreu rakes either way. We do prefer him against lefties, but still a great option. And then you got Larry Garcia, Luis Robert, and then specifically Zach Collins at 2-1, the catcher spot. Up-and-coming prospect that really rakes as well. So I like those lefties in both the Giants and the White Sox lineup. I think that they have some big upside in this one, and they get the top 2 matchups. And then just don't forget that Alex Cobb's really bad against righties too. You could argue that he's worse against righties. So while I do like the lefties, I mean, I have no issues with the righties as well. It's just these lefties usually have more of a slugging in their bat. But Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu at the top of the lineup, great options. Luis Robert, great option. So don't be scared off those righties in your stacks when it comes to Alex Cobb. And the White Sox are definitely a great option. Moving further along, Caleb Smith, the guy we already talked about, taking on the San Diego Padres, looking at his struggles against right-handed hitting. Terrible. 23.8% ground ball rate, a 57.2 fly ball rate, 10.8 walk rate. He has walk issues. He has a decent strikeout rate, but the WOBA, the hard hit rate, the slugging is really bad. And then against lefties, he's elite. But the problem is he has to take on a San Diego Padres team that absolutely rakes against left-handed pitching. Tommy Pham, Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, Will Myers, all of them are going to be great options for me today. And then Jurickson Profar in the 7th spot's not a bad flex option if you have to. We also did see Eric Hosmer go deep off the lefty earlier in the series. And just don't forget that he's going to be low-owned because it's lefty-lefty. Have no issues with tossing him in your lineups. He's in the core of the lineup, the 4th spot. So if they're able to get Caleb Smith out of the game early, too, you could argue he's going to be facing a righty sooner rather than later. So I definitely do have some interest in him. Like that Padres stack for sure, raking the lefties. And then moving further along, as always, I like to break down the splits from here on out. We don't have any like real gas cans. Logan Webb, I already said I'm actually interested in maybe pitching Logan Webb, so I don't really know that I'm all too interested in playing these Mariners bats. He is worse against righties, so if I'm playing anyone on the Mariners side, play the righty bats that can rake. You're really looking to play guys like Evan White, but I like to target him against left-handed pitching more specifically. Mitch Haniger, Ty France can play him, but I have a feeling that Logan Webb will have a decent night. And then, like I said, breaking down the splits as far as any other bats we're concerned, we talked about the Padres, we talked about the White Sox, we talked about the Giants. Overall, from here on out, everything's pretty good as far as the right-handed bats are concerned and how these pitchers limit righties. But when you go over to lefties, there's definitely some guys with some issues. We got John Gray, Joe Musgrove, and Corbin Burns, the guy that we talked about liking. But he also does have some issues against left-handed bats. And then Jose Abreu can have some issues as well. But specifically John Gray, of course, they're in course. He's really good against right-handed hitting. For the most part, against lefties is where he struggles. So I just want to make that a point. People are going to be playing these Dodgers. If you want my personal opinion, I would lean heavily on those lefties. Kind of stray off the righties. Maybe fade like a Mookie Betts, fade a Justin Turner, fade a AJ Pollock and Austin Barnes, and just play the lefties. Play Gavin Lux, Max Muncy, Cody Bellinger, Corey Seager, and feel really good about that stack. And move on from there. Don't really stick to the righties. I mean, the righties could have big games, but I'm just saying it makes sense from the numbers, and that's how you could fade some ownership. If the righties are going to be popular, just play the lefties only. I'm sure the lefties will be more popular, but the righties can be popular enough to where if you fade them, you have an advantage on the field. And you can advance in tournaments. And then, like I said, at the bottom, Corbin Burns is a guy that I said I had an interest in. And then Joe Musgrove against lefties as well, taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think that Ketel Marte is a great option, as always, at the top of this lineup. Switch hitter. David Peralta in the 4-hole could be great, as Drupal Cabrera, Eduardo Escobar, Pavin Smith, Stephen Vogt. They're going to go left-handed heavy to try to combat his splits. And while he does still have some pretty decent numbers in the strikeout, the ground ball, and the fly ball, the slugging is a little bit rough. So if you want to go ahead and stack up those lefties, I have no issue with that. And lastly, Corbin Burns. Walker Buehler, you could play bats against. I'm not going to go there, honestly. Corbin Burns, lefties, you can play. Minnesota, I mentioned he's an interesting pitching option. He does have the highest K rate. But with that being said, Minnesota lefties, you can take advantage of targeting him. Jorge Polanco, Max Kepler. Those two bats I have some interest in. Other than that, they're all righties, so that's why I had some interest in Corbin Burns. But those two guys as one-off makes some sense. And that is my overall breakdown of this 5-game slate. Before I let you guys go, I got to give you my home run call of the day. Let's get into it. And my home run call of the day today is going to be Yoan Moncada, hitting in the 4th spot for the Chicago White Sox stack that I had already mentioned I like, taking on Alex Cobb. Alex Cobb giving up a 500 slugging to left-handed bats, a 38.2% hard hit rate, 349 WOBA, and Yoan Moncada splits. He really does excel against right-handed pitching versus lefties. So excited to see his first righty of the season. Looking to be 70 degrees in Anaheim tonight. 5-mile-an-hour winds blowing out the straightaway center. A little bit of a bump to him there. Love him in this 4th spot in the Chicago White Sox stack. And Yoan Moncada is my home run call of the night. So there you have it, guys. Yoan Moncada, get him in your lineups, and that is all for me in this one. If you did enjoy the content, if you could please leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, I would greatly appreciate that. And then don't forget to check out my KJK DFS MLB and other packages, link below in the description. If you're interested in some further content from me, I'm going to offer you tools, a lot more than what you see on the screen during the video, a lot more to dissect and help you in creating your lineups. So definitely think that's going to be valuable, as well as offering any insight that you need from me. Ask me questions all the way up until lock, all of the above, and you get access to my power rankings and my cheat sheet. A little bit of a sneak preview here. I'm going to give you my power rankings of my top plays at each position, regardless of site, regardless of price, just top plays. Sometimes guys are mispriced, some guys are priced appropriately. Sometimes you might see a guy way low price. That's my #1 ranking. It just depends on the slate. And then if you're worried about breaking it down by price tier, I do offer a cheat sheet where you can get access to this. I'm going to break it down by price tier on FanDuel and DraftKings at each position. So that is all from me in this one. Wish you guys all the best of luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one.